there. Are you drinking out of a solo cup?
I can't. So after my coffee at 6 a.m., I have to have a little bit more caffeine. So I have like a mini can Diet Coke, but I
Yeah.
can't drink it out of the can. I don't
Oh,
know why.
the solo cup's better.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the metal or just it because it gets so cold being in the
Oh,
can in the fridge, and then I'm like it's sensitive to my teeth. I know, I'm
oh.
weird.
I have really sensitive teeth too, so I get the cold thing. The water that I drink is out of my excuse me, my like reverse osmosis. So
Hmm.
it's just room temperature.
Yeah, mine has to be room temperature as well. So
Yeah.
that's next. Gotta
Yeah.
hydrate.
Sometimes I'll get it from the fridge and the filter like in there and it's nice and cold, but very rarely will I'll maybe do that once a week.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I kind of actually I fill up this big gallon every day with lukewarm water and I just fill my thing from there so I can kind of track how much water I'm drinking.
I'm
But
same way,
yeah,
trying to
but the
be
sensitive teeth, I
better.
feel you on that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna celebrate that I have a haircut tomorrow
good for
because
you.
my ends, I literally haven't cut my hair in years. Like I think 3 years.
Oh wow, I know it's
Like
funny
obviously I cut this in
yeah.
my but like the actual length of my hair has been growing on its own for
That's what
years.
I've been trying to tell my girls. So
Ugh,
during spring break, I took them to my stylist and they don't get it cut enough. So when they get it cut, they're like, Mom, it's short. I'm like, no, it's not. Like they think 2 inches is like the end of the world. And I'm like, if you cut it, trim it more repeatedly, it'll grow faster and
yeah,
healthier.
it'll be healthier. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. What a great metaphor for life. When we cut the things off that are dead, no longer supporting our growth
Hmm.
and, bringing more fullness to us, then it's time to cut it and it's time to
Yeah.
trim it away, prune it.
Well, yeah, when I first got diagnosed with the cancer, I was like, oh my, the first cancer, I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to have, chemo and radiation? Am I going to lose my hair? Am I have to shave my head? So I cut it to here. I mean, it was as long as yours, and I cut it to here. And then I found out I didn't have to have chemo. And I'm like, well, hey, might as well. Mindset is number one. So it'll grow
Then
back.
it'll grow back. Yep. Yep. I love it. So, okay, so I think you had mentioned at the retreat that did you have more than one cancer?
I had
Okay.
two.
Okay.
So just quick snapshot. In November of 2021, I was diagnosed with, or at first it was stage 1 breast cancer. And then after I had my first surgery, they got the tumor out and it was hiding behind a cyst. And they only thought it was 1.5 centimeters and it ended up being over 6. So
Oh,
then it went from
geez.
stage 1 to stage 3 within 60 days. Went through treatment with that, almost finished, 2.5 years later, but I've had a total of 10 surgeries. And then in June of last year, my PCP had recommended me to get a colonoscopy because I had a high sensitivity to gluten, as you're
Mhm.
aware. And
Yeah.
I wanted my body to rest a little bit. So I kind of delayed getting that done. But when I got it done, um, they had found a tumor and I had stage 2 colon cancer. So a week and a half later, they had scheduled emergency surgery and they took my whole right side and the tumor and 30 nodes and it all came back negative. So, and so what I was mentioning before, I have to get scans done every 90 days at the cancer center here in Oklahoma City just to make sure that nothing's recurring, nothing's in my lungs, my kidneys, liver, what have you,
Every 90 days. Wow.
every 90 days. Yep.
So other than the gluten, is there anything else that you've had to change or not
So
had to, or is there anything else that you've really chose to change to support
I had
you?
really already had a pretty strict diet. So like, sugar free, the high protein, low carb, no starch thing, which goes with the gluten. So that really wasn't, I mean, it was kind of hard because it's like, gosh, sometimes I want some bread, or I want pasta or what have you. Um, and then, you pay for it for a few days, but a
Yeah.
lot of really the other thing I had to do was pretty much low beef, more pescatarian style, dairy free. There are a few things that I do eat dairy. I don't drink milk. And then soy free. So, but once I'm on have sushi, I'm gonna have a little bit of soy sauce. So it's kind of just everything in moderation and really limiting certain things because, I don't want to have a recurrence, of course.
Yeah. So what is your favorite meal right now? Like, what's your favorite thing to eat?
I would say I make this killer chicken parm, but instead of the pasta on the bottom, I put it in the air fryer and I put broccoli on the bottom. And then I just
Mm,
layer it like a lasagna. It is so good. And then throw some
mm.
like grilled asparagus in it just as a side. Girls love
That
it,
sounds
so it's
good.
like, hey,
Oh, yeah, then that's always good,
yeah. So I'll make a whole like sheet pan of it and then dinner on sports nights for a few days.
right? I love that. I like hearing what like alternatives because I've grown up with pasta, meat, potatoes, like
Hmm.
the basic American food that we,
Right,
are mainstreamed around that like this is how it is and grains and all these things. But I over the years I've really wanted to, and there's been times where I've been more focused on, you know, um more keto, so I'm
right,
eating more, yeah, but that's not, I don't want to be, doing like fad diets. I want to have those lifestyle changes.
sure.
Excuse me. Um, and I don't want, I want it to be a choice more than a forced choice that, something's wrong with my health or I'm having this health challenge come up that is like pushing me to actually do it. I want to be able to do it faster. But so one of my mindset challenges is, how do I, eat less meat when this is like every meal that we plan has meat in
Hmm.
it? And like, what are the things that I can do to replace pasta and still have, you know, that fullness to the
Hmm.
meals? So hearing like broccoli and like those things, I'm always like, okay, well, what's your favorites and what are the things that you're finding really like work for you?
Yeah, decades ago, I kind of, well, like when the Atkins thing first came out, that was like a lifestyle change for me because, being in law enforcement, I worked really odd hours and I had three stepkids and it was just manic, right? Always on the go. And everything is in moderation. So what I started was with, more protein, like a protein shake or less
Yeah.
portion of a protein like meat. I'm making sure it's higher protein meat like salmon or something of that nature, and then do it during the week. And then the weekends were fair game. And then after a while, your body and mindset just gets so used to it. I didn't want to cheat on the weekends
Hmm.
because that's when it comes a mindset lifestyle. Like, no, I'm going to choose the zucchini spirals or the broccoli, like I just mentioned, or just not have it at all.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, because, right, we find this is, in my experience at least, when we're really in a rhythm and then we do get out of it, it can be harder to get back in or harder to feel the difference. Or, right, then when we're really like, oh, this weekend, I don't have someone else that, is asking me to do something that would involve cheating on what I'm doing or, you know, go outside of the boundaries that I've set for the week schedule.
Hmm.
And then you realize, oh, I feel better come Monday because I stuck to the routine more than the last weekend when I was a free for all and did whatever I
Hmm.
wanted because I could.
And that's something that I'm teaching my girls because I've had a few holistic doctors through my journey tell me because all my testing is not hereditary. It all came back negative. So like that's good for the girls for like the breast
Yes.
cancer, right? But I have to be careful because they eat different at their dad's, and I can tell their change of mood when they get home because we're week on, week off. And
Mm,
I've gotten them into rhythm with me to where they rather eat what's on my plate versus the ultimate, like the pasta. Like once in a while we go out to eat or what have you, it's free game. But 9 times out of 10, like I try to make two separate things and they notice it and they don't want the other thing. They want exactly what mom's having because
yeah.
they know it's healthy, and especially my oldest, she's at that age where it's like that preteen hormones are coming in and the scale matters. I mean, she doesn't weigh herself every day, but then she'll compare her body composure to all her other
Yeah.
friends. So it's just, it's huge. It's really important in reading them. But when they get back from their dads, I can tell, okay, you've had the starches, you've had the processed food, you've had the sugars and whatnot. You've been drinking the regular soda and not diet. Now you should be drinking soda at all. I mean, I'm no I'm no prime example. I'm doing it right now, but everything in limitation, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be challenging, right? To think about week on, week off. But instantly I put myself in that position, like, well, I feel like I kind of put myself on that kind of roller coaster. I'm like, oh, I'm great for this week. And then it's like, oh, I fell off going to do something like I was
Mm-hmm.
saying. Actually, the Berkshires is a great example of that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was really in a momentum. I was probably like 32 days into really um like logging. I was tracking what was I eating. I wasn't necessarily saying like, oh, I can't have that. It was really just being conscious of tracking it so that I could
Mm-hmm.
see. Because if we're not paying attention to it, and tracking it, I don't pay attention to it. I have to be intentional about looking at it in order to be able to tell if something's working or if it's not. So I gave myself permission to to pay less attention when I was away on a trip, and I haven't got back to being disciplined about paying attention again, like that conscious intuitive eating has
Mm-hmm.
not been back in.
Yeah. I like right now I mean, I've been pretty diligent and good, minus a few days, but like I said, okay, look, I'm stressed anyway because it's April 15th. So I'll start on Tuesday next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I like what you're saying about that. I love that you pointed out I'm making two meals. I'm doing, what's good for me. And when we are being the example of what we want our kids or our teammates or, our peers of any kind to just pay attention, then it's better when we are making the changes for ourselves versus shooting on people and telling people what
Mm-hmm.
they, need to do to support themselves. But when we are showing up and we are giving, more of an example, it's easy for people to just pick it up
Right.
because it's exampled. It's shown more than it's told.
Mm-hmm. And just going back to like all the genetic testing that I had done came back negative. So anyone that I've talked to, I mean, I know it's from the food I
Right.
ate when we were kids. No, no pun intended on that was just our era, right?
Right.
Like you said, the meat, the potatoes, the salad with all the fat dressing and all the cheese and all the bacon and all the carcinogens and everything else. I mean, back in our day, it was spam and bologna, right? I wouldn't touch, you couldn't pay me to touch that right now. But just as an example,
Yeah.
ground beef and ground chicken instead of, the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something I do love about where we're at right now with, I love Pinterest. So Pinterest
Mhm.
is a source for me of where I would go and look at like what's a good recipe with a substitute for XYZ, and that kind of thing. So do you use Pinterest?
I was about to say I'm a Pinterest hoe and you can look me up and there's tons of food on there. I mean,
Yeah.
really that's all I use TikTok for.
Food?
There's a few diet nutrition coaches that, do the same type of methodology of food that I do. And sometimes I'll just go in there search, like I'll pull stuff out of the fridge. I'm like, okay, what can I do with this? You know, and will the kids eat it?
Yes. Yes, that is the biggest challenge in my house. But again, that's because earlier I didn't start introducing food earlier to them.
Hmm.
So now as they're getting older, they have more of the resistance because it doesn't look like the bland food that they had when they were younger.
Hmm.
So it's very different and very, very much a big change. But we're doing the best we can, mama.
That's right. We're surviving.
Yeah, yeah, we are. Okay, so you do tax preparation. What else do you
Mhm.
do? Tell me about what you do.
Full scale accounting and taxes, including tax planning, tax strategic coaching, tax strategy. And then I do business financial coaching on the side. That's kind of a new thing that I'll
Okay.
be launching this summer in a more upscale, expeditious manner. Also can represent clients if they owe a tax debt with the IRS or any state agency
Okay.
to get them in a repayment plan or eliminate the debt.
Very cool. And so have you always been in this industry?
Yes. I was originally going to school to be a forensic accountant. But back in the day, any like Homeland Security job you wanted, you had to have the bachelor's degree and 2 years of law enforcement experience. So I was going to school and working at night, being in law enforcement to get done. And then I kind of just got a little comfortable, ended up staying there almost 9 years,
Wow.
got assaulted by an inmate. And then I realized that accounting was more my forte. So I ended that version of Kate and started the tax and accounting back then, like
Mhm.
29 years ago.
Yeah. So were you a police officer?
I was a corrections officer for the state of California.
Okay, corrections officer. Got it. I do remember you mentioning that you were assaulted by an inmate. How long ago was that?
August of 2004.
Okay. I like that you said I let that side of Kate like end and you chose to be a new version of Kate.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how much you're familiar with the podcast, the Choose on Purpose podcast, and like the way that we talk on here, but I'm always talking about roadblocks and detours and having those green light moments, those rest stops where we choose to really make a pivot in our journey. Um, so that was just coming to mind, like, okay, how many times would you say, well, so when was your diagnosis? I don't know if you told me what year was that?
The first diagnosis was November of 2021.
21. Okay, yeah, you did say that. Yeah, so do you feel like you've like recreated yourself since the diagnosis at all yet? Or are
Oh,
you still in a turning
absolutely.
point? Yeah,
Yeah,
tell
I
me about
mean,
that.
I've reinvented myself a few times, and I know we all have. Like, I mean, us as strong women, independent, that's what we have to do. We're always in survival mode, right? There's been plenty of times in my life through a few failed marriages and things like that to where I noticed I had an attraction or I was just cling to narcissism.
Mm,
And finally, at the age of 46, I just realized that that was not going to be my path. And I just hit that roadblock and let it go. But I mean, I don't even have contact with my biological parents anymore because of that, growing up in a certain
mm.
situation. I was illegally adopted at 41. I mean, who
Oh,
thought of a
wow.
kid? Yeah. Yeah. I actually, in December of 2019, I flew to LA because my mom had done the adoption paperwork with the juvenile court in Los Angeles County. So when we went for the adoption, we had to go to juvenile court, which you wouldn't think that with an adult adoption, right? And I'll never forget the funniest aha moment of that pivot was my mom and my dad, my mom and I were waiting, and the bailiff comes out and calls my mom, and I walk up with her, and she's like, "Okay, we're doing it," and the guy goes, "We're doing an adoption. Where's the kid?" And I raised my hand. I said, "I am." And never in his 20-year career had he seen it. And it was
Mm,
just like, I didn't know we have to go to juvenile court for this. It was kind of a little weird, but
wow.
I got, baby's first Christmas teddy bear. So it's now on the Christmas tree every year at home. So
Oh
just
my
really
gosh, I
moved
got
me.
leg goosebumps, Kate. I got leg goosebumps. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Wow,
I'm very fortunate.
that's awesome. I love it. Where's the kid?
Yep, right
Hi,
here.
I'm Kate.
41, not 18, but hey, I'm here.
Oh, that is interesting, the juvenile side of things.
Yeah, I never would have thought in a million years that that was the process.
So
But yeah,
does your family live in California then?
yeah, they're in Southern California.
Okay. Yeah. Were you gonna say something else?
No, just, with that life experience and constantly having to change when survival mode, after halfway through the treatment of my cancers, I kind of just hit a pivot point that I didn't want a life a certain way. There's a reason why I'm still here. There's a reason why I'm a good mom and I have to be a good mentor for my girls, because that's my job. That's what I'm set forth to do in faith and to show them independence and to leave a legacy, for them and just to show them that they don't need to have somebody else or they don't need to be a certain way. They are going to be the way that God made them, where they feel comfortable in their own skin and not tolerate certain things in their life. I mean, my last past relationship, no pun intended to that person, but it was toxic, and I was constantly walking on eggshells, and my kids saw it for almost 5 years. And once I removed myself from that situation and them, I mean, just you could see the change in them. Like, I'm not even allowed to date now because of it. It's like, nope, mom's single. No, seriously. They track my
They're your
location.
protectors.
They
Oh,
call me if I'm not home on time. Like, it's like they're the parent and I'm the kid.
mm,
So I've had to like set some boundaries with, especially the oldest, right? But it's not, she already has high anxiety, but it's really because they're afraid and they're anxious. They don't want to see their mom go through the same thing that's been repeated more than once. And I get it, you know. So I've told them for a long time, it's just us three musketeers in the house. That's our group name with the three dogs, and nobody will be moving in. Nobody will be, cohabitating. It's just us.
yeah. You talked about faith. How does faith play a role in your journey?
It's the first thing. I mean, I'm very structured with the girls going to Sunday school and going to church every Sunday when they're with me. Like I said, we're week on, week off. And then even when they're not with me, they always FaceTime me in the morning. I'm like, hey, gotta go. I'm going to church to set forth that example, But even being an entrepreneur and being self-employed, as you're aware, it's just you gotta give it to him. There's certain things that I've done in my business and I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't the right idea, or no, I shouldn't have taken that client or gone down that road. And now it's just my road path is to wherever he takes me.
Yeah.
And I've learned a part of that at our retreat.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what did you feel like you really gained from going to the Berkshires? What was your takeaway?
At first I was really nervous about going because hence, 18, 20 females. I'd never been in that setting before. Um, and just taking the time off during tax season, I was a little anxious about as well, but it was the best self soul care I could have done for myself in a long time. Like I've never done something like that for myself. And I feel like I came back a different person.
Mm, I love it. Did you feel like good during it? So, right, it takes a certain amount of um determination to follow through on something when we're like there's levels, right? It's saying
Right.
yes to something, it's showing up for something, and then it's actually being in it, and being open to receive while you're in it.
Sure.
And then there's the aftermath. So, how did you feel while you were in it?
When we first got there on that Monday night, we all went to dinner. I felt like I was in it because everyone was so welcoming and just communication and asking questions and genuinely making an attempt to get to know you.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of it, a lot of people were like, well, how can I help you? Is there something I can do to help you? And just that commingling cohabitation of conversation and engagement and relationships was just amazing.
Yeah, I love how when women get together and they have that collaborative mindset, that abundance focus, that masterminding, ends
Sure.
up just it happens because we are very resourceful women, right?
Mhm.
So when we have challenges or when we have things that we're, questioning, we can go to each other for experience or knowledge or wisdom from all different aspects. That's what I think is really cool about in-person retreats, especially because there's a certain level of vulnerability that can happen
Mhm.
when people are open, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I
And
only knew a few people from going to professional moms in Norman and the OKC one a few times,
okay,
and now I feel like, well, I obviously have more connections and friends now, but it was nice to be able to go somewhere and have soul care and feel and know that the people around you truly do care about who you are, what you're set out for to be, details about your personal life and your children and whatnot and your hobbies and just about you.
yeah. What comes to mind, as I am reliving it in my head too, is and as you're describing that, I think about how what really was happening for me at least was like the whole mama was getting support, right? It's not just, it
Hmm.
wasn't a business retreat, it wasn't specifically a personal care retreat, but when we start from the inside, it goes outward, which reflects in our businesses, reflects in our families.
Hmm.
And it's really about that wholeness approach that, we're getting filled up so that we can be stronger everywhere, in all aspects of our life. And have you been to retreats before?
No, this was my first one.
What a great one to start with. Oh my
Right? I know.
goodness.
I got spoiled. When's the next one? Right? No, I
Yes.
was truly spoiled and afforded the opportunity. It was great.
And that goes to say too, like, how was the food for you? Because, right, we were talking about nutrition and you have, a specific diet that you're used to. Did that work well for you still?
Oh yeah, Jennifer and Joey went way over and above and beyond to make sure that the food that I was eating was particular to my diet. I kind of felt bad, but I never knew avocado chocolate could taste so good.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, did she make like a mousse out of it or something
She
for you?
did. Yeah.
So good. Oh my goodness. If you have a picture of that, I didn't get a picture of that. If you took a picture of it, I want to see that.
I think I did. I'll go on that app and look and then send it to you.
Yeah, yeah, because then I could put that in the blog too. Somebody's gonna want to see that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll reach out to Jennifer and get the recipe.
There you go. I was just about to say Jennifer will know better than myself. I just ate it. Well, I devoured it actually.
Indulged and delighted. I love it. I mean, I'm a foodie, so that's a big part of retreat experiences for me too, is like, what kind of food is there gonna be? Is there gonna be and the fact that we had a personal chef and it
I
was,
know.
customized and more tailored to what we like when I got there, they were serving up the tacos and I'm allergic to a lot of seafood. I see you have a friend next to you.
Yeah, it's my
I'm
golden
allergic
retriever.
I'm allergic to some seafood, so I just stay away from it. And
Mm,
so I don't eat fish. And they right away, they're like, oh, sweet potato tacos. Here you go. And they were so good. Like
oh yeah.
like you mentioned, I feel kind of bad when people are, seafood and all of this. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I can't have it. And it's like I am allergic to some, so I stay away from it for safety. But a lot of time, like I'm sure that you hear this too. It's like sometimes people want to be gluten free or have these things more as not a lifestyle change, but they're in
Right.
this stage, which is cool too, people experiencing things and all of that. But when
Their
there's
little
people that,
kick.
yeah, when there's people that really, have those as like their boundary and they have to do that, or they really choose to keep strong to that, it can be, hindering on some things. But
Yeah, I mean
it was
that's
a
when
great,
I go out to dinner like with girlfriends and stuff. It's like just no Chinese, no Asian. Anything else, I'll find something. So
yeah,
like don't go out of your way. I'll find
right.
alternatives because I mean every place is gonna have options.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a good point. And people sometimes think that they have to overthink it. Like,
Hmm.
oh, but we have to, make accommodations. Like, really, especially when it's your lifestyle, you adapt, you learn more about it, and it becomes the way that you operate. It isn't something you
Right.
have to, like I talked about dropping stuff, tracking, food and all of those things. It's daunting because it's building the habit and building, the routine and building more of the understanding around what you're doing. It does take
Mm.
more effort and energy
It's
when
a
you're
part-time
going for it.
job. It's a
Yeah.
part-time job. I mean,
Yeah.
even sometimes I do that because I want to know how many carbs I am intaking on a daily
Right.
basis. Because even though you're doing low carb, certain things aren't as low as you think, or keto
Hmm.
or whatever your choice is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we have to pay attention to what's in the things, even when it looks like, oh, that's a healthy label. It's like,
Hmm.
read it,
Yeah.
read it. So what would you say that you have implemented from the retreat?
The action items that we had during the mastermind, like the to-do list and what were you going to do when you got back?
That's good. Yeah, I loved how was very specific, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like focused, right? It was all about what is that one thing, what is the one action, and it was building on that in the sessions that we set our intention. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about what we want to focus on, set the goal, and then it was action, and it
The
was
homework.
very cut and dry, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome to hear, like the implementation
And it
continuing.
wasn't something that couldn't be done. It wasn't something that it was so overwhelming or so much notes or what have you, like 20 steps. It was 1, 2, and 3, and then go. Right.
Hmm. Yeah, and I loved that too because we were in a room with that many women, and it was round robin. Everyone shared, everyone, pulled something through, and there was time to have some insights or advice shared, but it was really about us getting to speak our own truth about what we felt and what we saw was next for us and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Joey getting to lead us in, okay, does that sound right to you? How do you want to move forward with it? Which is that support and that encouragement, but also that professional, like being able to hone in with you so that it's, not a lot of BS in there, which is
Right.
what we're normally dealing with in our busy mama head.
Exactly. Because you're your worst critic, right?
Yeah,
Or therapist, right? But one thing that I realized within 18 of us was even though we were all in different service niches, a lot of us had the same
right.
roadblocks,
Yep.
right? And I know even as myself, I felt like I was repeating somebody else's answer, but it was my answer too.
Yeah. Yep. It's true. I don't have it in front of me. I was just listening to a podcast, and that's really what it boiled down to, is that we're all the same with different challenges, you
Hmm.
know, that the challenges are different. They come from a different, you know, area, but when you boil it down, we are all the same, having different challenges.
Sure.
So the fact that we can easily mastermind, support, come together, really makes sense. Since I heard that, I was like, well, of course, that just is so true in my life, that I've seen over and over, that I can find commonality with people and connect on that human level, when there's enough space for people to open up and get to
Hmm.
share, like you sharing your story about your diagnosis. Like nobody would ever know those things unless we are brave enough to share them, and have
Right.
courage to talk about the, not pretty things that people go through all the time, that do make us stronger. They do help
Hmm.
us reinvent ourselves, and it's a choice to get to do that. So I love that. Would you, and I mean, you already said it, you'd go on another retreat in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
How far was the retreat for you? How far away was it for you?
I had to fly from Oklahoma City to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then from Charlotte to Hartford, Connecticut. And then on
Okay.
the way back, it was Hartford to Chicago to Oklahoma City.
Okay. Cool.
And
Yeah.
that's another thing I'll do the next retreat is the day after you fly all day, I'm not doing a darn thing.
Did you go right back to work?
Yeah, I ended up working a little bit on that Saturday, and then Reagan had a double softball header. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done a couple retreats, and um that I protect my calendar. I protect my
Yeah.
time when I get back, especially if it's away from my family. You know,
Hmm.
um I have 3 kids, and my husband helps when I'm gone, right? So, or not helps. He's their caregiver when I'm gone. That helps. But it's when I come back that I was missing in action, even if I talk to them on the phone. And when I do that, it's still, we're away from them. So I protect it enough to say I'm not gonna do specific things, and I really get back
Hmm.
into, feeling home.
Right.
So I think that's important too. Um, okay, so you mentioned soul care, and I wanted to actually invite you. I know that you plan to Netflix all weekend, but I want to actually let you know that you're invited to join the OP community on Sunday. We have our 5-year business birthday, and we're doing a virtual summit from, okay, you're in Central Time, so 1 to 4 o'clock Central. It's a
Okay.
3-hour summit, but it's called Living on Purpose. It's all about celebrating, intentionally choosing the way that we want to show up in the world, as the woman that we are. And there's a couple speakers. One of the things that we have in this space is a faith-based leader in conversation, Beth. We have another speaker that focuses on how to, she's a fear mastery coach. She supports you on how do you move through your fears. And there's another one that talks about courage. Actually, that's Terry, who's in here right now.
Mhm.
She's our courage coach. And it's all about just living on purpose. So if that's, I'll send you the information. You can look at it.
Sure.
If you're willing to pause Netflix and come on and come with us, would love to introduce you to more of the ladies in there, and experience the Living on Purpose community. And yeah, that's where Soul Care Sunday. The only reason it's on a Sunday, I would normally not schedule an event on a Sunday, but the 14th is our business birthday. So started the virtual community before it was cool and necessary to have that virtual space. Very proud of that. And a good handful of our members are OGs. They've been here since the beginning of that time too. So talk about a safe place to be able to show up. I mean, you saw I was in my bathroom when you came on, and like we just, we connect virtually. We have 18 hours throughout the week that our members can tap into and have this action hour structure that you're in right now with me, of the 10 minutes, the 40 minutes, and 10 minutes,
Mhm.
which is 10 minutes too. So I'm going to stop